Bad news for Star Trek Discovery this week. In the wake of the 50th anniversary of the Star Trek franchise, CBS has announced that the newest Star Trek TV series has been delayed from January of 2017 to May. According to executive producers Alex Kurtzman and Brian Fuller, the delay is to give them time to meet the post-production demands of creating a space-based TV show. The delay affects more than just the show, however. Star Trek Discovery was intended to be the first original series for CBS All Access, the network's subscription-based streaming service. Instead, that distinction will go to an unnamed spin-off to The Good Wife, which will debut in February. The delay doesn't appear to be changing the show's distribution schedule, though. Following its premiere in May, Star Trek Discovery will still be released weekly on CBS All Access. Coming out of the Tokyo Game Show this week, Capcom has released a bit more information about Resident Evil 7. PlayStation owners may have noticed that the game's demo, now called Beginning Hour, has been updated with some new content to explore. A new trailer has also been released showing off some of the more familiar Resident Evil aesthetics for the game's setting, which appears to be an abandoned plantation. In other words, instead of a scary mansion in the middle of the mountains, it's a scary mansion in the middle of a swamp. Dark hallways, creepy atmosphere, seemingly undead people on fire, all very Resident Evil-like. Of course, that doesn't explain these creepy folk. And speaking of Resident Evil, a trailer has been released for Resident Evil Vendetta. The latest CGI movie from Marza Animation Planet looks like it might be going back to basics. Describing the movie as going back to the origin of the zombie boom, it sure looks like that's Chris Redfield going into Spencer Mansion from the first game. Also coming out of Capcom's Tokyo presentation was Monster Hunter Stories. The new spin-off in the Monster Hunter franchise looks to be something like a Pokemon-style RPG where you train your monster while building your own character. The game also appears to feature a special Zelda-themed DLC, letting a Link-style character team up with Epona and a Majora's Mask-wearing cat. No word yet on if or when a North American version of the game will be released. Meanwhile, on this side of the pond, the official Pokemon channel has put up the first 2 episodes of Pokemon Generations. This series of animations dives into some of the behind-the-scenes lore of the video games, with the first episode giving a quick recap on the game's various settings and legendaries seen through the eyes of a captured Pikachu. Following that, the second episode shows a police raid on the Viridian City Gym as law enforcement hunts Giovanni shortly after his final loss to Red. The short animations will range from 3 to 5 minutes and will be released weekly on YouTube until December 23rd. And hitting theaters this week, we have The Magnificent Seven. A remake of the 1960s classic western, which itself was an adaptation of the 1950s Seven Samurai, the latest version of this ageless story now features Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, and 5 other dudes fighting off an army of bad guys. Or if you're looking for something a bit more animated, there's Storks. Andy Samberg is a stork helping a lost orphan get a lost baby over to its family, but before that, they apparently have to get away from a pack of wolves led by Key and Peele.
Let's go! Wolfpack! Form all! Submarine!
What is happening?
Submarine!
What?
On TV this week, fall premieres have begun, starting with Gotham as it returns for its 3rd season, and it looks like the city is continuing to go mad. Little Bruce Wayne isn't old enough to be Batman yet, but this isn't stopping the villains from showing up. On a scale of 1 to 10, this season looks to be about a 13 on the crazy scale. Next up, also on Fox, Lucifer is back for a 2nd season, and with luck, the buddy cop murder of the week premise will take a backseat to Lucifer's search to track down his missing mom.
Man, look at her shake.
Finish that thought, now physically remove your tongue.
Screen Queens also returns for a 2nd season. The surviving stars of the first season are back, moving from the sorority house to a hospital, this time joined by John Stamos and Tyler Lautner. Over on ABC, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. starts its 4th season, bringing Ghost Rider into the mix. And if you're confused by the muscle car, that's because this Ghost Rider isn't Johnny Blaze or even Dan Keach. This new Ghost Rider is Robbie Reyes, who, in the comics at least, is a young mechanic possessed by the ghost of his evil serial-killing uncle. Back over on Fox, Brooklyn Nine-Nine also comes back for a 4th season, except they aren't cops, nor do they appear to be in Brooklyn, so we'll just have to see where this premise goes. And speaking of cops on Fox, Lethal Weapon. Look, I want to give this a chance, but a Texas Riggs and Damian Wayans as Murtaugh? Just, why? Fortunately, not every Fox show based on movies looks terrible this year. This week also sees the first season of The Exorcist. Set in the same universe of the original, it'll be interesting to see if they can stretch an exorcism story across an entire season. Meanwhile, over on Sci-Fi, Van Helsing starts its first season as well. Set in what seems to be an apocalyptic future, a descendant of the original Van Helsing fights vampires and it kinda looks terrible. And speaking of looking terrible, MacGyver. Starring Havoc from the X-Men movies, who is a decade too young to be playing anybody ever played by Richard Dean Anderson, this looks almost as childhood destroying as Lethal Weapon, and the trailers even use the same music.
I'm building a strategic task force of the best and the brightest. I want you to be a part of it.
Finally, at least we can end the week on a high note because Star Wars Rebels Season 3 begins. The show is getting darker, and with Grand Admiral Thrawn hitting the scene, who knows how close Ezra will have to get to the dark side to stay alive. In video games this week, we have Galaxy Reavers, a space-based RTS that, while I can't really get a feel for how it plays, at the very least looks impressive. The Bunker is a rare FMV game about the only remaining survivor in a nuclear bunker. Exploring the bunker apparently unlocks memories and records of some pretty horrific events, and that looks pretty neat. Zenith actually doesn't seem to be all that interesting, but if the game is as funny as the trailer, then it might be worth a look.
Why do I hate adventurers so much? Well, I guess everyone wants to explore the world and live an adventure at least once. Even if your idea of an adventure is to walk around killing everything that moves and messing up local politics.
And speaking of adventure, Pankapu looks like a neat little action platformer. Switch between 3 classes of characters with different abilities to fight through a really pretty looking world. And if you're into procedural generation, Toy Odyssey is a roguelike platformer that has you navigating a haunted house and dealing with the various tiny monsters you find along the way. Next up, I'm not even sure if you can call this a platformer. Clang is a rhythm game more than anything else, except it seems that the rhythm syncs up with the combat and platform jumping. The Uncertain will have you thinking like a robot in this story-driven game about an android trying to make it in a ruined world. And last on the PC list, gotta give the RPG Maker some love. This week's entry is Mad Father, an updated version of a 2012 freeware game. And on the 3DS this week, we have Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. It's the end of the world in this turn-based JRPG, so form a team of friends and monsters to fight off the demons of hell. Finishing things up with this week's CGBros video, we have Mega Plush, Episode 3 by Matt Burniston. Have you ever wondered what a Frank Miller comic would look like if it were played out with stuffed animals? Well, look no further. And that brings us to this week's awesome video. Our old friend James Farr returns with a new installment in his Star Wars Nintendo mashup, The Triforce Awakens. That's everything for this week, so what new show are you most excited about this season? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, pass this video around to your friends, and have a great week.